Happy Tandy. I'm Ken. This is Canadian Retro Things. Welcome. Today, I'm feeling a bit nostalgic. So I've been thinking about what I should do for Tandy, and then I thought, well, for the past year, I've been one of the co-hosts of the weekly Game On Challenge over on the Coco Talk podcast. So I thought, well, why not do something about games? So I decided to do a few videos about some of the games that I really like on the color computer. So today I am going to start out with the top 5 most nostalgic games for me on the color computer. These are the games that when I think of the color computer, these are the games I really think about. Coming in at number 5 on the nostalgia scale is Dino Wars from 1980. This was one of the first cartridge games that I owned. Now, this is a fighting game. You're one of the 2 Tyrannosaurus Rexes there. And it's made for 2 players. I only have 1 player, and I have only 1 joystick hooked up, so the blue guy is just going to continue just walking away from me. But the idea of the game is that you have to get to your opponent and bite them on the back of the neck. And you do that when you push the fire button and you roar like that. Now, I played this a ton as a kid. I loved it. I was constantly bugging my friends to come over and play it, my parents to play it with me, anybody to play it with me, because it was just fascinating for me. The 3D perspective, being a dinosaur, it was great. I mean, it's not much when you consider, like, in comparison to games nowadays, the fighting games. But this was 1980. This was one of the earliest 2-player fighting games like that. And very original, too. I absolutely loved it. And coming in at number 4 on the nostalgia scale is Klendathu. This was a game that I owned on cassette. I got this at the same time that I got my cassette recorder for the Tandy computer. And it was just absolutely fascinating to me listening to this thing load. So in this, you play a Starship Trooper. Wait a second. Wasn't there a movie called Starship Troopers? And wasn't the planet that the alien bugs came from called Klendathu? Why, yes it was. So this game is actually based on the short story that the movie is based on. And you, basically, you're the little dot there, and you have to fry the giant spiders when they come down. So interestingly enough, that would make this the very first Starship Trooper game. It came out a long time before the actual movie ever came out, so needless to say, I spent many hours loading this game up on my cassette player and playing it. And I already died. And coming in at number 3 on the nostalgia scale for me was Stellar Lifeline. This was another early cartridge game that I owned, and it was also the first space shooter game that I owned. So it really captured my imagination. Up until this point, I had only ever been able to play space shooter games in the arcade, and I liked them there, But the object of this game is that you are the ship and you are moving this convoy across space and clearing a path for it. On the first level, it's just asteroids, but they do come up from you in front and behind, so you've got a little radar at the bottom that you can see. And one of the things about the game that I always found cool was that you've actually got inertia. So the faster you're going, the longer it takes you to slow down and turn around. It is definitely, even to this day, a fun game. Coming in at number 2 on the nostalgia scale is Temple of Rom. This is another cartridge that I owned early on in my color computer ownership. And it is another game that I played a lot. This is one that particularly captured my imagination because at the time, I would say that Indiana Jones was probably one of my favorite movies. And in this one, you are exploring a temple, collecting treasures, fighting off bats and spiders and flame monsters and all kinds of things. So, and you are armed with a laser gun for shooting things, like for instance this bat. And then you got things like the spider there, which will start coming after you as soon as you enter a room. But be sure that you don't accidentally shoot the treasures, because that's bad. Then you don't get them. Ah! And there is even magical treasures in this game that do certain things. But I won't tell you about that. I'll let you play this game for yourself and find out all that kind of stuff. And coming in at number 1 for the most nostalgic game of my childhood with the color computer is Dungeons of Daggorath. Now, this is a game that truly captured my imagination. If you don't know what Dungeons of Daggorath is, it's a basically explore the dungeon, kill the creatures, Dungeons and Dragons style game. And that is why it really captured my imagination. Because I was just getting into Dungeons and Dragons at the time that I was also just getting into computers. So this was the best of both worlds for me. And the way that you play it is you have to type in commands. So PLT is pull left torch, use left, that lights my torch. Pull left sword, now I'm ready to fight. And the reason that I didn't get very far in this as a child, because of course I didn't get very far, is because my typing skills were not very good. And when you come up against a creature, you have to type, well, it's abbreviated, but A space L to attack with my left hand, attack left. And I wasn't very quick at typing that, so I often got killed a lot, but I still loved this game. The fact that you've got the beating heart going, and each creature that you come up against makes a different sound, is just, you can sit back, turn the lights down with this game, and crank up the volume, and it is so much fun to play. Here we go up against a snake. So a little hint on this game is that always carry your weapon in your left hand because it's a lot easier than to use the A and the L keys than it is the A and the R keys for attack right. I learned that only after my childhood because, of course, I was right-handed. I always carried my weapon in my right hand, and that was one of the reasons that I was a little bit slower at being able to kill things. But yeah, even to this day, I love playing this game. And I use it as often as I can, whenever I can. And that is the top 5 most nostalgic games for me on the color computer. They are certainly not some of the best games on the color computer, but they are some of the original games that I owned. Games that I have been playing on the color computer for many, many years. And games that I spent many, many hours playing. So they really hold a special place in my heart. So I hope you enjoyed this little video. If you did, you know what you can do with the liking, the subscribing, and the commenting below, because anything and everything you do is always greatly appreciated. Alright, well, I guess happy Tandy, and I will see you in the next video.